Secret friends, unite!
Hey, secret friends, welcome back to Oops All Thunderdome. This is episode 560. This is our show where, of course, we take a single topic. We have two people, sometimes three, and we dig around, we deep dive into it. And this is one of our weeks that we're getting back in to talking about a comic miniseries. Now, I'm here joined by Kurt, who is my regular guy who I talk comics with. Kurt, good afternoon. How are you today?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. So yeah, this was Kurt's first suggestion, I thought, and what's particularly significant about that, at least for me, is I'd never read it before. That's not bad. When I used to record at the Oxtra, he insisted that if we read and discussed something, neither one of us could have ever read it. And I'm like, well, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. I think it's cool that I haven't read this. But also it's outside of anything that I read back in the day. So this is a limited series that is tied to the Mighty Thor. My brother collected the Mighty Thor back in the 1980s. Now this miniseries we're talking about is Baldar the Brave. It's 4 issues that were published in 1985 into 1986, including the according to the link that I have. And it is about a sub character that I was familiar with in passing. I'd seen the cover art before, particularly that first issue, which is very striking. But I'm gonna run through some of the basics here, and then I'm gonna get Kurt to tell us about the character and maybe give us some trivia. And then I'll also obviously read some summaries after he finishes that about what it's like, and then we'll talk about our thoughts. So anyway, if you want to glom onto this, I'll say this at the beginning, and maybe I'll say it at the end. And Kurt and I were talking about this a little bit in the pre-roll. Visit your local comic shop or a show. Your local comic vendor may have these 4 issues in singles if that is your thing. They may also have the ability. This story has been reprinted in at least 2 trade paperbacks that I saw when I was doing my research. It is available on Kindle or Comixology, which is Amazon, the Great Beast. But also the Great Beast by which I read this, and I talk about this every time we talk about anything related to Marvel, is Marvel Unlimited. Kurt, you also have sampled it before. I don't know how much. Do you still use it? Did you read this use Marvel Unlimited, or did you go to the floppies?
I own it.
Oh, you own it. So you just read it straight up. All right, cool. But yeah, Marvel Unlimited, like I said, I've been a subscriber for almost 15 years, and it is your all-you-can-eat comics on demand kind of option for the vast majority of Marvel non-licensed and sometimes licensed properties. Like, for example, they have all of the Star Wars books, including the ones they didn't publish, which is over on Holocron Chronicles. Peter and I are reading some of the Timothy Zahn adapted novels in comics right now that Dark Horse published back in the late 90s, etc. All right, the creative team for this, Walt Simonson, who was the guy for Thor back in those days. Pencil and inker was my guy, and we recently lost him, passed away not that long ago, Sal Buscema, who drew The Spectacular Spider-Man, which is a comic that I had a subscription to and read every month. It was the second of the 3 core Spider-Man titles that ran in the 80s and from the mid-80s to the 90s. Colorist was Paul Becton, letterer John Workman, and editor was Ralph Macchio. And again, 4 issues, cover dated November of 85 through May of 86. That's weird. So it was
bi-monthly.
It was bi-monthly. Yeah, November. I got November.
At the end of it, next issue, be back in 60 days.
Right. Well, and it makes sense if your writer and your penciler were on other active books. Actually, no, Sal wasn't doing Spectacular at that time. He came in a little later in the 80s.
Between assignments, because after he did this, he took over the art on Thor. Simonson was doing the writing and the covers. He was focusing more on X Factor with his wife.
Love that. Oh, love that early run of X Factor. Oh, yeah, absolutely love it.
It was some good stuff. They did some good stuff with it. They made lemonade out of lemons, but this is not an X Factor.
Someday, I would be definitely down to do that first arc of X Factor at some point.
I'm with you too. And this is more of a Baldar or Baldur.
Baldur, but yeah, I'm going to blast through the summaries, and then I'm going to let's do this first. Tell me about the character in 60 seconds or less.
Okay, Norse mythology, Balder is the god of the sun, son of Odin and Frigga. He's such a gentle being. That's why all the animals approach him. His death.
So he's Snow White, or no, that was or was it Belle from Beauty and the Beast? No, it was Snow White. She was in the forest. She lifted up her hand, and all the birds like helped her, like put her clothes on and shit.
At least he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
But his death in Norse mythology brings about Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods.
Right, which portrayed in the movies was a film with the same name, Thor Ragnarok, with Surtur and all this different stuff. Now, so if he is the son of Frigga and Odin, he's Thor's full brother?
They made that very ambiguous, and it was not revealed in the comics until decades after this miniseries. He was just a guy. He was
just a guy. So, and again, and obviously in the cinematic films, which more people, let's face it, more people are familiar with, Loki is Thor's adopted brother because he's a frost giant, where in this, there's never been any mention of him in the MCU that I'm aware of. So I think he's just
been in the MCU. The Warriors 3 have, Sif has.
And dead. Yeah.
And that's it. We know Balder.
Yeah. Yeah, they kind of were picking and choosing.
Yeah, I'll tell you just a very quick Balder story. In an FF book, you know how the Thing would call Thor Goldilocks?
Yes, of course.
He kept calling him Baldwin. He says, "Why, I have a friend named Balder who has more hair than you." And you see Balder appear, take off his helmet. "Greetings, Thor."
Oh my gosh.
That was one of the back puns, but anyway.
So in real Norse mythology, he's Thor's brother, but in this, they don't touch that. Just never even.
He's just
never really touched it.
He's just his
dude.
Fellow Asgardian.
Gotcha. And this is really scaled around and therefore kind of pushing you in the direction of reading the arc of Thor that was happening at this time, which was right around the 350s. I think they mentioned several times, like, C4 Thor 351 or 353 for this battle, because Balder, appears in one and then he comes back and his arm is broken or something. And so we'll get into that. So this was, to me, it was a story of on its own, but in the day where you were trying to drive the sales of other books, it was like, this is a supporting title for Thor. But let me rip through this. 4 issues. Issue 1 is called The Sword of Frey. Balder is in Nornheim, unaware of Odin's fate. Odin is dead. That's the fate. Agnar, who is like his sidekick, homeboy, whatever it is, arrives to tell Balder that it has happened, but is intercepted by Karnilla, who is his kind of pissy girlfriend, and we're going to talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
She's quite lovely. I mean, the first issue of this, and again, go look it up on Marvel Unlimited, just give it a Google. I mean, for a cartoon, she's pretty hot. For a drawing. And he is then, Agnar is then thrown in the dungeon. Balder eventually finds him and begins training. I love the training. I'll talk about that in my notes. To join Thor on his trip to Hell, 1L, which is how they get away with it. Issue 2, Balder the Betrayed. These are pretty short. The Frost Giants attack Nornheim after Balder is gone and kidnap Karnilla. And again, it's great how the giants are actually giants and the people are just like little, like, let me at them. She's like carrying her by her hair or something, but they carry her off. Balder and Agnar return and head out to rescue her. Issue 3 is Balder the Warrior. Balder has snuck his way into the castle of Utgard Loki. Now, I definitely want to talk about what the hell that is and what kind of name that is. But he is caught and forced to fight Hagen, who is armed with the Sword of Frey, which Karnilla would not give him for his quest. And it was like, well, bitch, look what you did. Too smart. And then for issue 4, Balder the Beautiful. With the help of Whiteface, very poorly named character, and it's an eagle. That could have been Marvel's chance to have Eagly. I don't know. I was just my own thought. But Agnar makes it back to Norn Keep, which is the castle that. Yeah, okay. Using his light powers, and that's good, because I was thrown off about why does he have, like, that? I don't know, because the other one, Asgardians seem to have, like, I guess they have kind of a specific sort of skills, like Thor's the thunder dude, and you said he's the guy of the sun. Okay, now I'm getting it.
Yeah.
Balder frees Karnilla, who has a very unfortunate haircut by this point, and is dressed in basically She-Hulk's early clothing, but not quite as revealing. So just tattered rags. and reduce the frost giants in size. Well, I like that. She's got like Ant-Man powers. That's pretty cool. And melts the castle of Utgard Loki, which I thought was called the Nornkeep. So I guess I'm a little confused.
No, that's Jotunheim.
Well, what the hell is Nornkeep? They arrive back at Nornkeep upon finding Hogan's note.
Home. Her castle.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And upon finding Hogan's note, Baldur heads home to rule Asgard, which I'm like, you buried the lead on that one. And again, why? Obviously, Thor's not doing that job because Thor is on Midgard doing Avengers shit and, having his own title. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to you because I dug and dug and dug. I couldn't find any background on this miniseries. There was no page related to it. There wasn't like, well, this idea came from. So anyway, let it rip. Tell me about your knowledge of this, the background of this.
Okay, Stan and Jack adapted him into Marvel Comics' Thor title in the 60s when it was Journey into Mystery, and he was just a what'd you call it?
One of the gang.
Yeah, he was one of the gang. Roy Thomas in the 70s adapted Ragnarok, one of the many times it was adapted into the Marvel Universe, which begins with Baldur's death. He dies a few times in Marvel Comics.
Ouch. Nobody stays dead in comics.
Took over Thor for his legendary run in the 80s. He really explored Baldur's character. He's suffering from PTSD from coming back from the dead all those times.
Probably like Wonder Man, right?
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of Wonder Man, yeah.
He's seen eating all this comfort food and getting drunk, which is why he's got a big belly at the
start of the series. Looks like Fat Prince Valiant in that first issue, which until that was my first note. I'm like, why is he so tubby? And then they get around to having this I wrote, I was a bit put off as I noticed how frumpy and old Baldur looks. Yeah. I mean, not to judge a book by its cover, but even Fat Thor in the MCUs was like mighty. Like he didn't seem like once he got dressed up and shit. I just didn't say it was very epic. And then I said he kind of looks like he should be selling insurance in Hoboken, New Jersey. But he bounces back on that kick-ass training montage, goes shirtless, and then he's the man. So,
Indeed. This was more of a niche miniseries. Simonson really fleshed out Baldur's character a bit. And, he's had character development that hasn't been done since, which is a shame. I don't think anyone would have bought this miniseries had they not followed Thor. I mean, who would buy a miniseries about somebody named Baldur? Think about that moment.
Especially if you flip through the first pages and saw that he looked like some fat insurance salesman. I'd be like, nope. You're not getting hold on, let me scroll up. My 75 cents. That's not happening.
It demonstrated just the clout Simonson had at the time to get a 4-issue miniseries about him commissioned.
Wow, yeah, he was a big swinger.
Well, Thor has not seen the popularity that he did with Simonson.
Yeah.
Come close, but Simonson is up there with Stan and Jack. Some people even say it surpasses Stan and Jack. If Stan and Jack was unplugged, Simonson was fully amped.
Yeah.
And it's to be noted, Baldur carries this book alone. Thor is mentioned, but he doesn't appear at all, not even in flashback art, just to do a great shot of Thor. It says a lot. It's high-tech fantasy. Simonson's niche, it seemed, was blending Norse mythology with superheroics beautifully. He really did. That costume he had was awesome.
That hat was like fire. I mean, and literally he produces fire later. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things that were kind of missing. I didn't get the main villain, Utgard Loki. Why was he Dash Loki? Was there a relationship? Was there a relation to Loki?
From the actual myths, I believe. And Frost giants.
Okay.
And they were the villains in this story.
Okay. Yeah, I love seeing the frost giants, and they didn't look like, and again, I'm coming from the point of view, as would be a casual reader who is picking this up, maybe they hear us talk about it, that the frost giants are like giant blue dudes like you saw in Kenneth Branagh's 2011 Thor, the film.
Yeah.
So that's, but
later on, I think those giants, I don't know, but they changed it. These were just big ugly looking humans, you know?
Yeah, big time. And they were big, and I always found it a chuckle when they capture, I just refer to her as Baldur's girlfriend, so I don't have to remember names, Carnilla. And they chop her hair off and they kind of tear her clothes down, so she's just basically wearing like a unitard.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like she's looking like Jane Fonda with a buzz cut. Black hair.
Yeah.
But they're carrying her around. They literally put her in don't they put her in like a bell jar?
Yeah.
And someone like holes poked in the top. And I do like the part about Balder and the bird who just goes cheep cheep, and then it says broken wing. But Balder has like those force powers that Rey inexplicably had at the end of the Star Wars sequel trilogies, and Grogu, Baby Yoda has in the Mandalorian. They can heal things, take some of their juice, but that's pretty cool. I guess the bird kind of takes off on his and kind of does his own thing. When he mentioned that he's in this fight with Hagen, whoever the bad guy is, he's like, I can only fight this fight shirtless, and he takes his shirt off and he wraps it around, and I wrote shirt tail power because he knocks the guy down.
Yeah.
There was a beautiful in that sequence, the Sal Buscema super punch, which was in almost every issue of Spectacular Spider-Man. When somebody gets knocked down, they flip over backwards and fly with such a speed, and the point of view is the person like ass over tea kettle with their feet in the air and their head down, and just go. And then the one person is just, you see a swipe of their hand off to the left or the right, where it's just like blam.
Yeah.
I love that. It's kind of like in cinema. And if you've read as many IMDb pages as I have talking about movies, there'll be a remark as you're going through the trivia, like director's trademark. So that's an artist trademark. That's like a thing that they absolutely always do.
Oh yeah.
So I really dug on that. So yeah, I'm just kind of skimming through my notes. You're right. The only guest appearance we get is from
Hogan.
Hogan, and he's there, and he doesn't even interact with anyone. He shows up, he's like, oh, nobody's home. I gotta leave him this note, which he jams to the door with a knife. And I'm like, I was reminded of that line from Ragnarok where Chris Hemsworth, as Thor, is sitting talking to Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, and Strange is like, well, I've been trying to get in touch with you. He says, well, have you considered sending an electronic letter? Well, that's just as well. I don't have a computer. So I'm like, that electronic letter could have helped in this situation. But I do like the end after he's rescued the girl and gets her back home again. Is that even though, because she was such a bitch in the first issue about letting him go to perform his duty to help Thor fight Hela in hell. I mean, that's his gig. You know what I mean? But she's the bad girlfriend who's like, no, stay here with me, but be fat and blah, blah, blah. And she doesn't even give him the super sword, which he then has to combat when he's fighting in the arena in issue 3. But at the end of it, she at least says, she kind of lets him go with her blessing, which is like the only classy thing that this really bitchy lady does this whole thing. So otherwise, she's a huge pain in the ass, I think. She's like you know who she is? She's the Baroness from G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
That's who she is. She's the Baroness she's Anastasia de Cobre. She's the Baroness. There we go.
I liked the last page. It was sad because you see him riding off on his horse, and it reveals that she's crying at the end. So
and no shoes, which I'm like, I'm no shoes, which damn, I have very cold feet. So thinking that they just rode, it reminded me of their travel. Reminded me of like the Holy Grail, and there was much rejoicing. Clap, 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 clap.
Well,
he's not wearing any damn shoes.
Quite literally, because
he's light guy.
Yeah,
right.
Because this is the first time I believe they showed that he could generate light. Which is why he melted the frost giants down to size.
So the frost giants only have their size because they're cold.
Yes.
But if you melt them down, it doesn't kill them. They shrank to like action figure size because they were like, we got them now, and they're putting them in a bin or something.
How they get their size back is Loki, later on in the Simonson Thor run, kidnaps Iceman, hooks him up to the machine, and they grow again. They become giants again.
So they're like the what were those things that you put in the? Do you remember this when we were kids? You put things in a tray and put it in the oven, and were they
Dinks.
shrinky dinks? And they but why were they called? But they grew, right? If you okay,
Yeah.
or did they not go in the oven? Did you just get them wet? You got them wet, right?
I have no idea.
Now I don't. Now I'm just gonna. That's gonna be a search on YouTube to find a video.
You're very OCD about that.
Well, yes, that's why I'm so good at what I do. But yeah, you're right. That's the story. So, so I got to tell you, and again, I know we glossed over a lot of stuff, and we can certainly go back and if there's anything specific that's on your page of notes. But I really enjoyed this because it was very off. It was off book for me. It was kind of off of my radar. I won't say outside of my comfort zone because like, oh God, I won't read this because like I couldn't wrap my mind around it. But you were right. You were like, it's very heavy. It's got the Shakespearean language. I made a note. When Utgard Loki is making like a potion in a cauldron, and he's talking to the girlfriend, and he's like, you see, the merest addition of shredded ram's bladder. And I was like, that's some George Lucas level. You can write this shit, but you can't say it dialogue. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. What the hell was that? But yeah, I did like I said, I didn't know anything about Balder. So of course I didn't know that his special purpose, as it were, was to have light powers. But when you say he's the god of the sun, that totally makes sense. I didn't know about the frost giants were giant because they were cold. I just knew that they love the cold, but I didn't know that was like, if you got them hot, they were like, yeah, they turned into like little guys.
Oh yeah.
So there was just a lot of things about this that were very interesting. Yeah, and like you said in your notes, it's a testament to the fact that Simonson had a lot of heft. If he could say, well, I'm doing X Factor, because he would have been in 1985, would have been doing X Factor, and I've been doing Thor forever, and it's like the book is actually selling, and X Factor launched because people were really into it, or people got into it right away. He's like, all right, I want my passion project. But at the same time, I'm going to use it to sell Thor comics. Watch me work. I think that's pretty sweet.
It did.
Yeah.
It had that fantasy to it.
Yeah. So in perhaps this reflects in your notes or not, how was this received? Was this a seller? Did people enjoy it, or was it just like, I did my thing and he didn't care? It was like he just fired it off.
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
I think it sold well enough because it was a good complement to what was going on in Thor at the time.
Right.
Thor was going into hell to save mortal souls that Hela kidnapped.
Right.
And also, he just was doing a lot with Balder. It just seemed logical that he got his own miniseries to close out his story arc, or at least a good chunk of it, to get him to the point where he's the king of Asgard. Thor doesn't want the throne because Thor, he wants to be the hero. He wants to have his adventures. That's why he doesn't do it.
Don't fence me in, baby. I totally get it.
So Balder, by the end of the Simonson run, he is the king.
Yeah.
I believe in the next run, DeFalco brings Odin back.
Oh, of course. Like I said, yeah, with the Norse gods, I mean, they've all been dead at some juncture.
Yes.
Yeah, they're on because they're not mortal in the way that we are. So it's like, if I walk outside and get hit by a car, I'm dead. There's not going to be an issue where and then I was resurrected and usually. But yeah, with Norse gods, and of course, being that this is comics, I mean, how many times has Spider-Man died or changed into a big spider, or he grew, 4 more arms or some shit?
Yeah.
There's nothing specific around that's going to, because it's kind of the nature of the format, but it seems like stuff said in the Norse mythology Thor space is going to be even more so. So, well, cool. I didn't put this in the notes, but I'm a big person for rating. So out of 10, what would you give this little series?
I love the series. I'm going to give it a 10 because it just seems to defy all the conventions. He was not a very well-known character. It was very niche. It was very off the beaten path, and yet it was such a good miniseries. It just had that high token-esque fantasy aspect to it, which I love.
Yeah.
And it was very dense with the pseudo-Shakespearean dialogue. I liked something is rotten in the state of Jotunheim. That was a Hamlet paraphrase.
Like trouble right here in River City, so to speak. Yeah. That's good stuff.
Simonson was at the top of his game. Sal Buscema was so good in this, especially with the super punch that puts you down.
You're right.
And the ending was really cool. It was sad, and it showed a little bit more to Carnella. She was more than just the cold-hearted bitch.
Yeah, the Baroness.
There's a reason why Baldur was with her.
Because she was hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was. So he goes off to rule Asgard. I mean, and just the fact there was no Thor. He's mentioned, but he's not seen. It says a lot. It really says a lot about the miniseries and all that. It wasn't a lot of Marvel stuff, especially in the 90s. This happened in the 70s as well. They would do a new series or a mini series, and it would get canceled abruptly.
And
this didn't happen. I mean, you'd think it would, but no, it didn't. I think that just goes to show how much Simonson had with Thor at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the end of the Thor run, he's still in charge of Asgard. He has another round with the Frost Giants because Iceman gave them their giantness, for want of a better word, back.
Such good synergy between Simonson's two big books, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thor appeared in X Factor a couple of times. Because, when he eventually became involved in the Mutant Massacre, and there was a reason for him to be there. It wasn't fits and giggles. Let's get Thor involved, because why not? There was a reason for him to be there.
Right.
It made a lot of sense. Then he saves Angel. Angel becomes Archangel. He's into the wall. He saves Angel. And eventually he saves Iceman, which I never understood. There shouldn't be any bad blood between the Avengers and the X-Men because Thor saved two of them with an...
Right. Well, there's always the Nexus and it throws out. I would just to kind of put a pin in this. I would tend to agree with you. I would rate it very highly, a 9 or a 10 for sure, because you're right. It defied all the conventions that make miniseries kind of obnoxious. You know what I mean? I might shave a point off just because of my lack of familiarity with some of the story elements, but that's not really on him. And they don't really exist in you remember even in the 90s, there was like the double half cover would fold out and like tell you like stuff that was going on in the book or whatever. They didn't have that. So they were depending on people to really get it. And he really, like I said, referred back to the OG book, but somebody who's picking this up is probably most likely reading Thor. So they're going to be tuned into that. So I think this was a cool suggestion.
My rating is highest because I love the Simonson stuff.
Yeah, I look forward to doing more of these, and we should definitely pick a Thor. We might even have a Thor Simonson run in our wish list that you and I put together, and maybe the first few issues of X Factor. We'll get it sorted. But anyway, that's our show. So Baldur the Brave. As I said, you can find that. Go to your local comic shop. If you like print, they can help you order a trade. Visit Marvel Unlimited or Kindle /Comixology/Amazon. And this was the first episode I blew past talking about our Patreon, of which Kurt is a Patreon. One of the things I know Kurt likes the most about our Patreon is that he gets to listen to all of our shows early. You get, like, for example, our interview show, which is the Spotlight. You get a new episode every Friday, and the following Friday, that one becomes then, out on the public feed. So you're getting stuff early. We have, exclusive shows that we have on there as well, and Discord benefits. Patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Your first week is free. Your first month, half off, which could be $1 because you can stay on board for as little as $2 a month. So we love doing that for you, and we'd love to see you over there. So again, patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Kurt, thank you for this as always. I've enjoyed.
Was a pleasure.
Yeah. I enjoy doing these segments. And again, I know these are not regular segments because we have, more things that cover that are a little more topical. We'll talk about new movies, or we'll talk about new shows. You and I have done that. So when we get in one of these comic ones, I totally enjoy it. So how do people get in touch with you if they want to talk comics or whatever?
I'm on Facebook at Kurt Anthony Krug. You'll see me on Facebook, Kurt Anthony Krug. I'm not on X or Twitter, whatever it's called. Facebook is more than enough social media for me at the moment.
It's enough engagement. Well, for me, I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'm not only on all the things, but not X, but I also do it for Secret Friends Unite. So you can find me as at the C3 THECEETHREE on any of those main socials. Also, Secret Friends Unite, different variations of that. I also, and I'm kind of lazy about this, so I got to get back at it, but over on TikTok for our Secret Friends Unite, I do my little 3-minute kitchen/dining room/studio chats where I just talk about something that I'm enjoying. So go subscribe, and follow us on all of those different things. You can also get all of our shows, obviously, off of our website, but also on Apple and Spotify. Peter, my partner, and I overhauled the RSS feed a number of weeks ago, so everything is there. And of course, you can find all of our great Spotlight interview segments, if you'd like to watch them, over on YouTube. So we'd love to have you there. Kurt, it's always been a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.